What's up, Quad Cortex users? This is Steve Sterlacci, and today we're going to look at the new 1.4 update. So if you guys have been living under a rock for today, you would have noticed that you got an email from Neural saying that the new 1.4 update is available. I just installed it on my device, and I'm going through the changelog, and there's a lot to be excited about in this update, and I am curious what this is going to do for the Quad Cortex, because it's kind of been in a weird place where, yes, it's a fantastic unit. It sounds great. The UI is fantastic, but for me personally, it's still just a touch behind in a few ways when it comes to actually taking it out and gigging and touring with this thing, at least compared to other modelers. So obviously being a newer unit, it needs some time to catch up, which is totally fine. And I think that this might be a step in the right direction. Let me know what you think as we go along. So if you are a Quad Cortex user or a Quad Cortex hater, let me know in the comments what you're most looking forward to in future updates. If this update is the one that did it for you, that set you over the edge and now you love your QC, or it's convinced you to buy one, or it maybe convinced you to not buy one. Let us know in the comments. Let's see, let's get a discussion going on what ways we can make the QC better in the future. The first thing that I'm going to talk about, and the thing that I'm personally most excited about, something that has bothered me that we couldn't do from day one, we finally have Stomp mode bypass, which means that you can assign any amount of blocks to one foot switch. And why is this so important to me? I am somebody who, when I use two different reverbs, I like to be able to toggle them. That's my basic application for this, aside from multiple bypass, like if you have a solo that you don't want to use scenes for. Right? Using scenes is great because you could be so flexible with all the parameter changes and stuff. And sometimes you only want a few things to happen, like a few bypasses, and you don't want to burn an entire scene on just a couple of button presses. So you can now go into your Stomp mode, and like I am on my unit here, you'll see that I'm in my Stomp mode. So here you could say I have two reverbs right here on my grid, and I want to be able to just toggle them back and forth. So I'm just going to take this one. I'm going to press the new assign foot switch button. I'm going to assign that to A. This is just for an example's sake. I'm going to click my next reverb, foot switch assignment, A. Okay, so now let's see what happens. And now you can see I can toggle the reverbs back and forth instead of having to turn one on and then turn the other one off or try to press two buttons at once. Really simple, really great way to use the Stomp mode bypass. Again, you can also use this instead of scene mode because scenes are super powerful with parameter changes, and you could do basically anything you want with the scene changes. And maybe you don't want to burn an entire scene on something as simple as a reverb swap or something as simple as solo boost, where it's just going to be you hit an additional overdrive pedal and you turn on some more delay and reverb. All that could be done with just one button press in Stomp mode instead of having to go through your scenes. Another great feature that I personally think is an excellent addition is the input noise gate. So normally we'd have to add one here first in the chain if you wanted to do it that way. But now if you press and hold on the input, you now have this noise gate that you have your threshold right here, and it's going to tell you with a meter how much gain reduction the noise gate is doing. So once you're playing and when you stop, that'll snap to a certain point and kill all the noise that you don't want happening in between songs. I think that's a great add personally. And what's another thing that you could do here, now they have this little interesting scene toggle here. This is a new animation or a new, I'm trying to remember now. I totally forget if this was in the old way, but it's cool that you could just go and set your parameters and change scenes right here also, even when you're in Stomp mode. Another cool thing that that you can now do here. You can also now swap your scenes. So if I were to tap this, the three buttons up top, you'll see swap scene A or copy scene A. You now have the ability to just swap the scene, and it'll tell you to, and it'll tell you to press a destination for the scene to be swapped with. So that's pretty cool that you can now just rearrange things. You don't have to go and re-dial in all your parameters. You can just swap the scenes right there. Another good one that is kind of interesting too is now you have, for the text cursor, you can now use your top right button encoder, and you can turn that. And now I have this name here. I can now turn this encoder up here, and it will change my location as far as where I'm typing. Next thing I want to talk about here is the USB out. So when you go to your USB out, you now have a second page where you can control the dry and wet mix. And you can even push right there, that little eye, so it'll explain to you what's going on here. So this means that you'll swap between clean DIs or processed signal fed into the USB outs 1 to 2 or 3 and 4, inputs 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 on your DAW. So that basically maps out how to do that. It's a nice thing to have, pretty handy that it's right there. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that are added. I got this up on my phone here. We got the mini voicer, which is a cool, intelligent mini voicer algorithm. It lets you add 2 pitch shifted voices on top of your signal. I think that's something that the QC was lacking. That'll be a nice, especially because I know the Helix, the harmonizer stuff isn't very great, but with the power of the QC and how powerful this engine is, it should totally crush it when it comes to pitch effects. So I'm really looking forward to trying that out. And you can see the different parameters that you have here. You've got a ton of different stuff that you can do. You can quantize this to a tempo, which is pretty cool. You have your different roots, your modes, like these are the scales that you can use, major, minor, or chromatic. And you can pick your root note here, which is cool when you're picking out the harmony. You have your glissando, which is cool that you can add. That'll give it a nice effect. Let's talk about the new amps that were added. So they said 9 new amps, but realistically, it's only 3 new amps, just different instances of those 3 amps. So we have 2 of the Bogner Uber, a blue channel, and yeah, the blue clean and the blue lead are added for the Bogner Uberschall amp. So that's 1 amp. That's not 2 amps, if you ask me. Diesel added a bunch. We got the Herbert channels 1, 2, and 3. And then we basically got 4 different instances of the high-powered Tweed Twin, which is a great vintage amp that Fender put out. It's very popular. I think Joe Bonamassa has been using them on tour for a long time, so they're a really great amp. Awesome addition. Overdrives, my favorite overdrive of all time, the Nobles ODR1. It's not in any other modeler. So right now, the QC is the only modeler that has a model of the Nobles ODR1, so I'm really excited about that one. We got the Keeley Red Drive, and we also got the Vemaran, the Ibanez pedals, the gold ones, the Vemaran Janray, which is a very, very expensive and sought after overdrive. With delays, we got a new dual delay. That'll be cool, having 2 different delays in one pedal. Be able to do a lot of cool tricks there. Compressors. This is probably the most impressive add, is the amount of compressors and the style of compressors that we added here. We added the CS3, which is a classic front of the chain compressor that a lot of players swear by. And then we also now added 4 compressors that are technically studio compressors that are also stereo. So having a stereo compressor at the end of your chain is something that's really going to give you a nice polish and sheen to your tone and give it a more professional sound. We've got the UA 1176 model, an opto comp, solid state comp, and a VCA comp. Those are going to be killer. Try those out at the end of your chain. As far as modulation, we got the Dimension chorus, which is my personal favorite chorus pedal. I always use my Dimension, and I'm really happy to see that. And then we got the industry standard MXR Phase 90, which is just the classic phaser sound. And there are a bunch of other internal changes and a couple of small tweaks that they made to the workflow and stuff like that. You can go and check it out on the changelog. I'll link it down below in the description. But let me know what you think of this update. This is just a quick run through of what we got and what it can do. And I think that we're headed into the right direction. I really like the way that QC is developing. I wish it was a little faster, to be honest. I wish that we were getting these updates cranked out a little bit quicker so that it could be a little bit more ready in comparison to the other modelers and what they can do. Mostly in particular, I want outputs assignable. I want to be able to assign my XLR outs to just be unity gain with no volume knob. I want to be able to assign my volume knob to control my 1/4 inch outputs that'll be going to me on stage. These are all things that are pretty standard on all the other modelers, and I'm really needing the QC to do that before I can take it on tour or take it on stage with me. But right now it works great for smaller gigs. Just navigate through using scenes and a couple of presets. But I think that's all stuff that can be improved on, and it will be improved on as future updates come out. So if you made it this far, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.